Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Mercedes and this is the Frugal Life of Mercedes. So, I have talked ad nauseum, I'm sure for some of you, about why you should have your own money, why you should have autonomy, why you should have a way of providing for yourself. And I never want it to come off like I'm against a traditional household. I've said many times before, I grew up in a very traditional household where my father worked outside the house and my mother was a stay-at-home mom pretty much my entire life, and that worked for them. And I know other people that have had a lot of success for it. But I've also known a lot of people who got really badly burned from similar situations. And I have never been a stay-at-home wife before, but I was in a situation once where I was transitioning into being a stay-at-home wife, and that ended pretty badly. That's like a whole other Oprah show. I don't even know. I've been contemplating sharing that whole story, but I don't know. I probably will at some point. I don't know when though, because it's a lot to kind of drudge it all up. But essentially, I was in a situation where I was going to be spending my life with somebody, and I was working, and I was made to feel like it was okay. And when I say okay, like it wasn't like a controlling situation in that aspect. It was more like, you're my woman, if you want to stay at home and run the house. And, we were talking about starting a family and all that kind of stuff. Then it might be good for you to kind of transition, because I'd always worked. And shortly after I cut back my hours at work, the whole relationship just like imploded on itself. And to be honest, I was not very smart about a lot of things at that time. There was a lot of red flags that I just was choosing to ignore, and there was a lot of like undercut situations that I really didn't know about and that were being concealed really well. So that would have affected my decisions as well. But I have to take accountability that there was a lot of obvious signs of some tomfoolery, I will say. But basically, like, that situation imploded on itself. And I was saying I wasn't being very smart because I didn't see the red flags. But not just that, but I literally was like, so I was working and contributing to the household, the agreed upon, whatever. And I had student loans at the time, and I had a car loan, but I didn't have any credit card debt at the time. And I was kind of living high on the hog. I've said before that like my nails are my thing, and at the time I was spending an obscene amount of money on nails and just all sorts of things. And I literally had nothing in savings. I didn't have a 401k. I didn't have like a plan or a plot. And it's kind of funny because at the time, my financial responsibilities in that household were very minuscule, I will say. And so I had the opportunity to pay off my student loans, to save, to pay off my car. And I was literally, at that time, I was not financially literate at all, and I was just paying the minimum payments on my student loans and on my car payment. And at the time, I was like, I'm doing so much better than other people. I don't have a credit card, and it's normal to have a car payment, and it's normal to just pay the minimum on your student loans, and like it'll take care of itself eventually. Like, I'm serious, like that's which I know it might be hard to like believe, but I just was like not concerned about it, like, writing the very minimal amount of my student loans. And there are people that are in that position where they can only pay the minimums because of other circumstances. but I had the money to pay them off, and I just didn't, because it wasn't a concern. There were other things that I was like, anyway, I was kind of a different person back then. So anyway, so when that relationship imploded on itself, there I was, barely working any hours because I was transitioning into staying at home, and I had nothing saved, and it was just a really, really bad situation, to tell you the truth. That's why I said someday I might share with you guys the whole thing. But I never want any of you guys to be in that situation. Now, that's why I always say, like, there is nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home parent, or a stay-at-home spouse. I do know people that they do not have any children, but they are a stay-at-home spouse, and that works for them and their significant other. And I think that's great. As long as you feel safe, and as long as everything's on the up and up, and you do have autonomy, and the other person is not in full control of all the money, all the finances. Because I have seen situations like that before, where it's like you get zero access to the bank accounts, you get zero kind of say, and if you spend $10, then you have to like justify it because they work and you stay at home. And that's not a situation I want to see any of you guys in. But I can only speak from my experience. That was a really, really harsh reality. And that is actually when I got my credit card, and I got in all sorts of credit card debt. And I've shared before that I was literally paying my rent with a credit card because I could no longer be in the home I was in that I had helped build and like nested. And I had to go find another place to live, and I was not in a situation to pay a security deposit or a first month's rent, and I couldn't stay at that location. And I was also not in a good state of mind, because think, if a relationship is ending, and you're kind of blindsided and you're heartbroken, and especially like in this particular situation, it was like super, super like mega traumatic the way it ended and the way everything, like all the chips had fallen. You're not going to be thinking rationally. So wouldn't it be nice if I would have had that like little nest egg? And it definitely would have been. And then fast forward many years later, I was in another relationship, and this one was not quite as traumatic. It was just like, listen, this is not gonna work. Like, I can't be in this for the next 60 years. Like, I just can't. And luckily, I had learned my lesson, and I had money in the bank to leave. When I left, I was almost completely debt-free. I was only a couple months away from being completely debt-free. And it was just like night and day. Like my thought process was different, and I was thinking much more rationally than I had the first time. And even though both relationships ended differently, and I was, older the second time around, I can tell you that second time felt really nice, because like, it's still painful to think about like not having any money and not having a plan and not really having a way to take care of myself, but having to. And there were times in that first relationship where I wanted to leave, but I didn't see how it was feasible. And the second time around, there were times when I wanted to leave, and I knew I could. And I knew that I would be okay. And that is completely night and day. So again, guys, like, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just telling you, no matter what your situation is, make sure that you have a way to take care of yourself. Because what do I always say? Relationships end, spouses pass away, spouses become disabled, things happen, things change, people get laid off, and you want to have contingency plans and some way to better yourself, some way to better your situation so that you're never stuck in a situation that you don't need to be in. Okay, guys, so anyway, I hope that you got something out of that. If not, you got to hear me talk about, I always say, like, hopefully I made you laugh, but I don't know. I hope I didn't. But I hope that I got you thinking. Do you know what I mean? I really hope that I got you guys thinking. I'm constantly drilling into you guys, like, you have to have a way to take care of yourself. And this is why, because in those two situations, one, I was completely screwed, to be completely honest. And the second time, I was good. Do you know what I mean? And I could focus on the end of the relationship and the healing and the upset of that. And I knew that I was okay financially. And that was a wonderful, wonderful way to be. Do you know what I mean? It was like one less thing at the end of that situation. So take of that what you guys will. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel. If you did not know, I have an Instagram, The Frugal Life of the Mercedes. Until next time, guys. Bye.